Well, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, so Dusty Johnson, pre-elect for House District 63 here in the state of Colorado.
Okay.
7 counties in the Northeast, so it's Logan, Morgan, Phillips, Cedric, Washington, Yuma, and most of Weld.
Wow.
So a lot of terrain.
Do you know approximately how many constituents
Uh,
that might represent?
yeah, every House district has about 88,800 people.
Okay. And that's specific to Colorado. It's
Yeah.
different in other states.
Yeah,
Okay. Gotcha. So, did you know that you always wanted to go into politics, or is this a recent development? How did you decide to get into it? How long have you been a politician? Just basic background about yourself.
Yeah, when I was about 4 years old, I guess I would argue with the TV.
Okay.
And my mom didn't like complainers.
At 4?
Yeah, I was
Age
arguing
4?
with some
No way.
ad or debates going on.
Yeah.
And it was a reoccurring thing. So she finally said you can go outside and do more chores or get some crayons and make a plan on why you're upset and how you're going to fix it.
Right.
I'm not a dumb kid. I already have chores. I'm not going to do more.
Yeah.
So I took the crayons.
You said tours?
Chores.
What do you mean? What is that?
Like going taking care of the animals, laundry, dishes, chores, like around the house.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. Chores. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That makes sense. No, you're good. So, did you live on a ranch or something? Like, you had animals when you were growing up?
So lived, first was born in Westminster, but moved out very young to Fort Morgan. And so we grew up on a hobby farm. We had goats, chickens.
Okay. How many acres do you remember?
We moved around. So the first one was 80, and we were renting it. And then we moved to another place around a couple hundred, and then we moved to 5.
Oh. So even 5 acres is plenty of space to have animals and stuff. So it sounds like you had a great childhood. That would be so fun.
Yeah.
That's like everyone's dream is that they want acreage
dirt bikes,
and animals and
forts, paintball guns.
Okay, so at age 4, you're already interested at least, and then so tell me between age 4 and today, what kind of transpired and what inspired you to run for politics, and what's the story there?
Yeah, so it developed, as I got older from, just focusing on presidents because that's what 6-year-olds kind of know about.
Right.
To eventually got into very deep, there's Congress, there's state level, there's Supreme Courts, we need to learn about it. Very upset that we have people who are elected who don't understand basic businesses, basic people. They always seem to come from political lines and names, or they come from money. So I planned with my mom, I think in elementary through middle school, and developed, how do you become a holistic person to better understand the people? So the plan was I was going to try to know a little bit of every industry.
Okay.
I knew ag. I was a rent-a-hand. I knew how to AI, fix fence, drive equipment, because we didn't have really our own brand.
You knew how to AI?
Artificially inseminate.
Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah. We're in a town where it's it could be artificially intelligence. Yeah,
right.
No. Different.
That didn't seem computer related, so I was just clarifying.
Yeah, no, and I forget that we have to clarify now because we're in a digital era.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of just stuff around, farms and ranches for other people.
Yeah.
So I knew the ag industry, 4-H FFA. I wanted to know the healthcare side, so I got my EMS. And I would go be a volunteer at rodeos and things on standby with, the ambulance.
Yeah.
To learn the medical side.
And your parents just instinctually kind of knew, hey, we should cultivate this in her. Were they politically active or involved?
No. Yeah, so I grew up with a single mom. She was not active much. She got active for me so she could learn, so she could help me learn.
Yeah.
Never really had inklings besides, besides me. So she was like, okay, now you have that. You're going to help with Special Olympics because she was a special ed teacher. I would, tutor kids, so I kind of knew the education side. Saw her frustrations as a teacher. Did want to go into the military service. I was appointed to West Point.
Okay.
And I was set off to go serve.
You were appointed to West Point? What do you mean?
So in order to get to West Point, you have to get an appointment from a Congress member or a senator, or be in the service already and then get appointed by the president. So you first have to get an appointment before they even look at you applying or getting accepted.
That sounds very exclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a limited base, but they want to make sure it's representative of all states and congressional districts, and that's why they pull from everywhere.
They don't want.
No, so about in the process of it, my leg gave out, and they medically waitlisted me for a year.
Wow. Okay.
So, and they had, personal invite. You're going to come do a tour next year. We want to, still have you come.
This is when you're 18 or 19?
Yeah, so senior year of high school.
Wow.
Because that was my military side that I wanted to do. Because if you're going to serve, you should know who you're serving.
Yeah.
Leading.
Right. So who recommended you or?
Cory Gardner. Former Senator Cory Gardner when he was still in the House.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you meet him, and what was the connection there? How did you get involved with Corey Gardner? Because I'm familiar with that name.
Yeah, no, he's great. And he was very boots on the ground when he was in service. He lives in Yuma County, so he would visit our local, fairs and our parades. And so when I was still in high school, I connected with him and met him. And he has an amazing memory. He remembers
Just
everyone he meets.
by coincidence, you just bumped into him.
Well, so I bumped into him once. He gave me his office number. I stayed connected.
Yeah.
And then when I was finally old enough to go through the process, I already knew that name recognition, how to kind of go through working with his staff.
Yeah.
And then eventually I did end up working as an aide, and I knew him even more.
Yeah.
But it's always just you never know who you're going to meet in the networks.
Right. And then, okay, so how did you... What was the first... Is this your first office that you ran for? Have you run for other offices?
I'd never run for an office. I've worked for other offices.
So what did you do before this?
So before running for this office, and West Point didn't work out because I had medical issues. I got diagnosed with a rare tumor, which changed my whole outlook on what I was going to do.
Dang. It was cancerous, I assume, or no?
No, so it's only 1.4 people out of a billion get it, so I had better chances of getting a lottery.
No way. Oh my gosh.
But it's like a sarcoma. So because it was located in my knee, it was not cancerous. If it would have moved up my leg to my hip, it would have became cancerous because it just eats and destroys everything around it.
Right.
There's nothing life-threatening in a leg, but up to the hip, you have organs. So I learned more medical that way.
Dang.
But while doing all of that, I was still going through college, exploring, my religion because I really got
Where'd you go to college
with
at, and what was your major?
Regis University, politics with a specialty in water and ag.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then I did an internship for Congressman Buck in D.C. in junior year of college.
Ken Buck.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then stayed connected with his staff. So by senior year of college, I was working for him already before I even graduated.
Yeah.
And then I was in charge of his whole Northeast region, charge of ag for the whole district.
Yeah.
Eventually moved to D.C. for him to do different policy work, like on the Farm Bill.
So I have to ask, how did you get connected with Ken Buck? How did that happen?
Yeah, so just by the faith of I had an amazing professor who connected me with an internship program that I could do politics in D.C. He was my congressman. That's why I interned for him.
Yeah.
And so that's how I stayed connected. And then I knew the staff really well as an internship.
Yeah. Do you still have a connection with him, or not really maintain that really?
He did say congrats when I won on the primaries.
Yeah.
So still have his number, but we haven't really been in touch for a while.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah.
That's cool though. Oh my gosh. Ken Buck's a big deal. That's legit. And especially Corey Gardner. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow. So it seems like maybe you were very blessed just where you were born and the connections you made and all that kind of stuff. So.
And then worked for 3 state senators and did a lot of the legwork. So now running.
Well, worked for in what capacity?
I was their all staff. So at the state level, they have staffs of 1. So you're essentially without the title chief of staff. Okay. You do the scheduling, you do a lot of the amendments, you help with the bill drafting, you do their tours and everything in between.
Gotcha.
So.
Wow. So, okay, so you got involved, and then what made you decide to run for Colorado House? What were the events kind of leading up to that, and then were you being asked to run, or was it mostly just you're just recognizing the state of the country or the state or the county, and you were just like, oh my gosh, I have to do something. What really inspired you to kind of make that decision to run, and when was that?
So 2 years ago, I thought I was going to run for state senate because we had an open seat. The current senator was term limited, Jerry Sonnenberg.
Okay.
I was starting to pinpoint it. I was still going through some medical stuff. After talking with, and I had worked for Sonnenberg, talking with him, it wasn't the timing. It just didn't feel right. Ended up working for his predecessor, Senator Byron Pelton. Paid attention to this last cycle, and was going to run in 2026 when the current representative in this seat, Richard Holtorf, was term limited.
Okay.
Holtorf decided to run for Buck's seat because Buck decided to step down. So it started a whole chain link event. I had a whole bunch of people reaching out saying, are you going to do this? We're going to throw your name in. We've already started spreading rumors that you're going to do it.
Okay.
So I've had it. I wanted to.
Decided, yeah.
Before I officially decided, yeah. So I knew I wanted to, but it kind of spurred it all in.
Right.
So I had to do a phase out of being an aide because you can't be an aide while you're on a campaign. so I became jobless on this campaign. I had to really figure out that financial piece and plan that.
Yeah.
And then just went straight into it.
Yep. And what is the so what do your prospects look like? First of all, I want for everyone to know, like, what district are you running for, and what position, and what do your prospects look like at this point? I know we talked about it a little bit beforehand, but
yeah, so it's House District 63.
okay.
There are 65 House districts in Colorado. So representing the Northeast at the Gold Dome in Denver. So it's all state level, not going to D.C. because people get confused on that.
So there's 65 Colorado state representatives?
Yeah.
Is that right? And then 35 senators? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah.
Yeah, so for prospects, I'm now considered the pre-elect.
Okay.
You do have to do the official process of November, so that way it is the official that it was voted on in the general. Did have a Democrat, but they were disqualified before the primaries. So now, since there's no one else going, but I was selected in the primaries.
And why were they disqualified?
Yeah, so they weren't filing their financial reports on time. They weren't documenting what contributions they were receiving. Here in Colorado, the Secretary of State really monitors every financial piece that goes on.
Okay.
And they have strict regulations on if you're filing correctly, not filing correctly. Sometimes they give leniency depending on things. This one, in my belief, might have just been a token. Just to prove that the Secretary of State is going to both sides of the aisle and making sure to follow the rules.
Yep.
So.
And why... Okay, so they were disqualified before the primary.
Yeah.
Is that right? So why didn't they nominate someone else before the deadline?
So unlike the federal level, at the state level, you have a strict guideline to either go through assembly process or to fill out petitions. You don't collect those signatures on time or you don't get nominated through your assembly, you're done. So that's the grassroots kind of caucus petitioning level that we have. If no one makes that deadline, they're disqualified after the deadline. That party, that position, unless there's no one running, then they might look at an exemption.
Yeah.
But if there's someone else in the campaign, they just don't open it up again.
Gotcha. So at this point, it seems like it's pretty much as close to a done deal as you can make it. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, right there, respect. And then, okay, so I have to ask, just because the timeliness is so perfect. I assume you heard the news about Donald Trump being shot at, and so what are your initial thoughts on that? Especially, a few days after the event. What transpired, and what do you think the reverberations will be, just politically, nationally? Obviously, we'll bring it back to Colorado politics, but I just want to hear your thoughts on what are the implications really of what just happened? Like, that was Saturday, right?
Was it Saturday or Sunday? No, it was Saturday.
I think it was Saturday. Yeah.
It was Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen completed assassinations and attempts in the past.
Right.
We are at such a we're in an issue right now in society that we're now accepting that violence is okay, which it's not. No political violence should ever be accepted, no matter the candidate, the person. I was expecting more of an outbreak on the media, and there wasn't what we'd expect. And I think it's because our society is getting so fed up with how bad politics are getting that we're forgetting the root of politics are supposed to be for the people, and now it's becoming about the party on both sides. I think the way that former President Trump handled it was amazing. He handled it with grace. He continued, he went to an event the next day.
Right.
Showed the nation, that he's strong, waiting to see what, statements he makes from this.
Yeah.
Understand that, anything like that happening, he was blessed beyond belief. If it would have been a couple inches, even centimeters in a different direction,
right.
I mean,
yeah.
It was terrifying, and we did lose the victims. One of them, at least for sure, a couple others injured and waiting to see what happens. But the lack of, any public statement on even on the Democrat side saying this is not okay, we don't condemn this.
Right.
They're looking for some kind of scapegoat.
There have been some Democrats that
There's been
have said,
some.
hey, we need to bring down the temperature, just pull back a little bit. And
there's been some, but there's been some where they're almost like saying this is what happens, when you have bad candidates, bad leaders, this is a...
Yes.
All the bad things they're saying.
And there have been a lot of people that were like...
Yeah.
dang it, he missed.
Yeah, I know, and I'm like, that's not how we should be
That's
thinking.
crazy.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and
I think though, like when something like that happens, when you have people that are like, oh my god, like I can't believe you missed. That to me, or to even say that it was staged or
there's a lot of
faked
stagings
somehow.
on both sides of. Did you see that they let people on the roof, or did you recognize maybe they let them in and
Right.
the
But for a
security were in on
Democrat,
it or all this?
Democrat to say that Trump's campaign planned that or staged that somehow, I think anyone who's saying that is making themselves look like a fool because no one's seeing that opinion and thinking like that's a valid or noble or justified opinion in any way. Because it's like, dude, there's no, especially when you watch the video, you can see him like just slightly turn his head, just literally milliseconds before it happened. And if he had not done that, I mean, how can you possibly say that was faked? Oh my gosh. Like, to take that big of a risk, to literally get shot in the ear, like you think that was planned? I cannot respect that opinion at all.
And to put it in,
there's
I mean,
no plausibility to that. I don't get it.
He handled it with grace. I mean, any public platform, especially at the president level, having been a former president, I mean, he's had to deal with, high negotiations, tons of public speaking.
Right.
The way he handled it, like, he handled it with such grace, I think most people would be freaking out and in tears.
Right.
And would have been fine if he was, but the way he handled it with grace and he was waving and uniting, and it just shows the difference of, how much you actually have to put into a position.
Right.
And how much you have to give up of yourself to recognize that you are representing the whole nation.
Right.
And it just shows that platform of we need to be honoring the office because of the high intensity role that it plays.
Yeah. And just to see that happen and then to watch him stand up and, say, fight, 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 and USA, USA.
Yeah, that's why I was like, he's uniting. He's not,
You're just like, this guy's a freaking gangster. Like, he's a legend. I already loved him before, and now it's like, he just got, you just pushed him past the stratosphere. Just like, oh my gosh,
it looked great for him. And any response he would have had, if he would have stayed hidden under the podium, if he would have asked for help, would have been fine.
Right.
But for him to rally so fast without a second thought.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. How can you not love that man at this point? Just be proud of America. Like this, oh my gosh, it was such a major event.
And the next day he went to a UFC fight. Didn't even take a day off. He just continued.
Right. And then have you been following the RNC much, or is that?
Not at the federal. Like I've been watching our state party here at the.
But you know who the vice president?
Vance. Yeah, yes, he's the youngest presidential nominee that we've had. Which.
Right.
I want to know the thought process because he was just elected 18 months ago.
He's
recently. A new term member.
Yeah.
Essentially, and I mean, I'm the youngest candidate running in the state, but he's essentially a baby in the game of politics at the federal level.
Right.
I want to know what went behind this.
So, yeah. So, I was going to ask you, but I guess maybe you don't have all the answers. But, had you heard of this guy very much before he was announced?
He wasn't one of the names I heard floating around, and I didn't have an idea of who I wanted to be. For him to come out, I mean, it's a bold move.
Right.
Maybe it's what we need is that fresh, definitely need all voices, right? Like, you do need the, incoming, you need to get more people involved. This could be that, getting the youth involvement and showing people we need to come together again and care.
Right.
Could probably be the background of that.
Yeah. And apparently he had been critical in the past of Trump and some of his policies and rhetoric and that kind of thing, but I guess recently, Donald Trump Jr., Donald Trump's son, was one of the primary backers behind him who actually got promoted to that position. And apparently, Trump Jr. pulled a lot of strings to help him reach that position. So, I don't know.
Interesting. And I'll have to do more research on that. And the reason that Trump was elected in his first term, people were tired of politicians. And more so, they want statesmen. They want people who understand people and understand business, which is, again, what I was upset when I was little.
Right.
You have these long-term names that are running. So maybe, Vance, only being so new in the system, he knows enough to kind of understand the federal issues, but he hasn't been corrupted by the swamp yet.
Right. And as far as the just the whole persecution of Donald Trump, like, even if the shooting hadn't have happened, I think Trump was well on his way to winning. But just by virtue of the fact that in America, it's a very foreign idea that your political opponents would be persecuted, whether it's well, at first they tried to ban him off social media, and that didn't really work. He started his own platform,
Yep.
and it's like, wow, that's a pretty BA move to just start your own app to be able to speak out on. But then the social media banning didn't quite work out as well as they thought it would. Then they tried the legal, lawfare.
Multiple impeachments before that.
Right.
Yeah.
And every single time it was just promoting him in popularity and propelling him, really. And just every time he would get higher and higher in the polls. And then it's like, well, you've exhausted your options now. You've tried banning him from the public. You've tried putting him in jail. And then it's at a certain point, they're just like, well, maybe we should, I don't know, take a shot. Take our best shot. But it seems like they know that they're going to lose. One of the things that I've seen Democrats say recently was, oh, but the shooter was a registered Republican. So I guess that makes everything okay. But it's like, just because he's a registered Republican, does that mean he likes Donald Trump? Like,
right.
I don't know. Just
when
like
he
obviously
switches,
he's like Donald Trump's biggest fan. Well, no, like he tried to shoot the guy. Like he obviously hates Donald Trump. So to me, just the fact that merely he was a registered Republican doesn't carry very much weight to me. Like, especially when you know that, especially in swing states like Pennsylvania. A lot of Democrats will register Republican just so they can have influence in the primary and that kind of thing.
That's why I want to know if he is a newly registered Republican because primaries just happened, or is he a lifetime Republican?
Well, I think he was only 20 years old, so he must have only registered in the last, 2 or 3 years. But anyway, that's just such a crazy... That's so insane. Like, just the fact that just happened recently, and, we were there when we witnessed it. Like, at least for me, I remember exactly what I was doing, what happened, where I was while that happened. People called me and were like, "Did you hear what just happened? Like, are you okay?" Because everyone knows that I'm a huge Trump supporter. They're like, "Are you crying right now?" I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I promise." But no, that to me is just such a shocking event. I mean, that will be talked about 100 years from now, like. As a historically significant event.
Well, and it almost goes like the famous Reagan. Well, he has many famous, but Reagan's where he was shot attempted shot, and then he heard a balloon pop, and he's like, "Oh, you missed me," like he joked.
Yeah.
It almost goes into that kind of historical criteria.
And if he wasn't going to win before, it seems like he's gone from kind of legendary status to almost being deified, almost just like beyond what we've seen from other presidential candidates or even past presidents. Like, at this point, it almost seems as though he's in kind of a Lincoln or George Washington or Ronald Reagan type stratosphere in terms of just his status of American presidents. That's just... Anyway.
Well, and he's going through so much, and I was like, and that's the saddest thing, though, is it's the mental health of the shooter. Because he had some mental health going on. You have to if you're going to go and try to take another human life.
I would think so,
I mean, we have that crisis going on. We need to address it. But we also just have the fact that people think it's okay to say, oh, gosh, dang, he missed. Or we would have been okay if he would have. And I was like, why are we in that point in society?
Yeah.
We used to be respectful of people. I don't like your... not you, but I don't like your policies. But we can still get coffee at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or we could still be neighbors and work on something together.
Right. And
now it's just such a huge divide, and we're splitting our country, so it was really cool to see USA afterwards.
Right. Okay. And so let's bring it back. So I think that's enough coverage of the Trump shooting and all that stuff. Well, okay.
He will have a cool scar. But
yes, he will, absolutely. Hopefully, I almost hope that he pulls a Mike Tyson and like a little piece of his ear is missing, and not Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield. Mike Tyson bit Mike Tyson bit a piece of Evander Holyfield's ear off. And anyway, I feel like Evander Holyfield and Trump should do some type of interview where they both share like the missing piece of their ear. I think that would be awesome.
That could be your next podcast.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yes, one day that'll happen. But no, what I was gonna say is, just so far, like, just from what you've seen, do you feel like this was some type of conspiracy or inside job, or do you feel like the Secret Service allowed this to happen? Or I know the head of the Secret Service is she seems very DEI oriented, and it just seems like anyone who would use that type of terminology, like we need a more diverse Secret Service staff and that type of thing, it seems like she would at least lean more Democrat. Do you feel like there was any type of shenanigans going on behind the scenes, or do you feel like this guy was just a lone wolf, crazy person who decided to do something on his own?
And I've seen, the SS, Secret Service in person, like when Trump went to get on, Aircraft One.
Yeah.
They're like an in-sync crew. They're down to their job, wired everywhere. From my understanding, it was a lot of calls into the local police departments. And I don't know if it was just a lack of taking it serious, thinking they were being pranked, not wanting to report it. We live in such a day age that people call just to mess with people now.
Right.
So I don't know if it was that lack of miscommunication, they didn't just carry it on. If something went down with technology, maybe it was an internal. I don't want to jump to that yet, just because I've seen the crew and how much they have to go through, and having, high respects for our military, and they kind of operate the same way of you respect your commander-in-chief. That is your job at the end of the day, minus policy.
Yeah.
And they have that morale. And such a bad background. So I'm wondering if it wasn't, they're just not taking protocol serious. We get this prank call, sure, someone's on the roof, that's not possible. Right. We're just not going to pass that on.
Yes. And there's a couple of things going on there, at least for me, that are like, okay, raises an eyebrow, that should definitely be investigated.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was the closest building, the fact that that person got that close.
They oversight something, and there's something wrong in that internal, but...
And it was a white roof, and he was wearing dark clothing. This is someone who should stand out, I would think, pretty quickly. So that's the first thing is just how did he get on the roof initially, just that close, with a gun that's plainly visible. The second thing was that at least there were reports, I haven't seen video of this necessarily, but apparently a police officer that had been informed that there was a shooter on the roof climbed up, got on the roof, saw the guy, encountered him. I don't know if you've heard this yet.
No, not yet, yeah.
But then backed down, and then the shooter shot. And it could have been that the shooter threatened the person, and they were just like, well, I don't want to get killed, so they climbed back down or whatever. That's very suspicious to me. And then thirdly was that the counter snipers were aware of this person.
They have to see intel everywhere. Even if someone goes to blow their nose, they're watching.
Right. And they had the shooter. The counter snipers had the shooter in their crosshairs for at least 1 minute, I believe. It was like 40 seconds before he shot. And I'm saying it was at least 40 seconds. It might have been up to 2 or 3 minutes where they knew that this guy was there. They had him in the crosshairs, and they didn't shoot. And apparently the protocol in the Secret Service is to allow that person to shoot first, only because you don't know for sure that this person's a threat. So you don't want to accidentally kill like an innocent bystander.
And you can't use excessive force if there's no probable cause, which you get into that whole legal thing, but you think you would have alerted someone. Right. Now you're on mass, TV, but you should have at least alerted someone to move the president or to comprehend the guy and go talk to him.
Yes.
I don't know.
At minimum, as soon as there was a suspicious person who they thought had a firearm, should have been taken off the stage. They should have been like, okay.
Oh, they should have overreacted. Tell him to go off. Say there's, and you could even tell the press, hey, there's a mic issue, or we need to tell him something. We just got an update. Someone will be right back.
Right.
I don't know, something.
Even if you're like not 100% sure that it's a gun, or like you don't know 100%, it's like that should be enough. Just the fact that there's a suspicious person who you think has a firearm in the crowd or on a roof close by, that should be enough to move. But there was no action taken, which is just insane. And
in the theory, he is technically trespassing in a spot he's not supposed to. They could have at least, took him from the roof, taken him somewhere else to question.
Yeah. And what's really like frankly is disappointing is that there's no one to ask questions to. Like, the guy's dead, and I mean, hopefully there's enough thread that you can pull to figure out what really happened if it goes any deeper.
Yeah.
But it's just really crazy that they waited until after he shot. They killed him. Now there's no one to ask questions.
And we should have street views. We're in such a digital era. There has to be videos of this everywhere.
Right, and there should be
at least a couple angles worth
of videos and different angles and all that stuff. But anyway, okay, bringing it back to the Colorado level, House District 63 in Colorado. What to you is kind of the biggest issue facing your district? What do people really care about? What do you intend to do once you get in office?
Yeah, it's very much the urban-rural divide. We have a growing population in Colorado. A lot of that is going to the metro areas, but we're seeing some of those populations come out. But they're trying to tell us how to live our way of life. How do we do our practices for agriculture?
Yeah.
They're trying to take our waters away from ag practices to go to, new housing units. We don't have transportation. We don't have, rural services like hospitals, mental health. Because all the money still goes to the populated areas. So the biggest thing really is that urban-rural divide and trying to explain to people, we are feeding you. This is where your energy and food comes from. We need services out here.
Right.
I get you're the population, but we do need things out here.
Do you feel like that's the primary issue for your district is agriculture?
Agriculture, which encompasses, like energy, oil and gas is huge. Just keeping the state afloat, whether that's fed or warm or cool, depending on the, the time of year.
And what is agriculture being attacked in Colorado, would you say?
It is, we've seen it for a few years now where they're trying to go over, like pesticides and taking that away by putting it at the local level, which means they're going to over-regulate it because of that.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to tell us what to do with animal husbandry practices. We saw the bill where they said that you can't castrate, you can't AI artificially inseminate them. It died, threatening to come back.
So, wait a second. Repeat that, because you're saying that there was a bill.
Well, it was a ballot initiative that they were trying to get through.
Okay, but it
didn't pass, but they're going to try to go back at it.
Okay, but they were trying to say that you can't artificially inseminate?
Can't artificially inseminate. You can't castrate fix. To some level, it did have you can't even help when they are in labor. Like, you can't even insert your hands to help, which is what you would do for a human, too, right? If they're having issues.
Yeah.
You can't have, veal.
You
have to have them come to, a certain age of life so they can have a quality of life before you can even,
Yeah. If you had to play devil's advocate, what was their rationale? Like, what about that made sense to them where you weren't allowed to perform those basic practices?
Just to make it so you can't do any reproductive measures. They don't like meat. The first gentleman doesn't like meat. There's a reason we did have the meat out day that they proposed, which quickly turned into meat in day by many communities because we wanted to promote our, meat industry.
Yeah, that backfired pretty good, yeah.
But when they wanted the meat out time, they really are attacking anything that's doing with animal production.
It became National Carnivore Day immediately.
Yeah. Oh, it helped it. It spiked.
I love that.
But they're trying, if you can't take care of that, you can't, it really is ruling out any animal production.
But do most Democrats in Colorado Congress agree with that? Is that like... You
sell it correctly. You're trying to sell that animals have the right that we're taking away their right to choose if they want to have a calf or not.
Okay.
And you're humanizing these animals that you're on a whole different level then.
Is Polis a vegan?
No.
No? But so he eats meat?
Yes.
So why would he not want Colorado to that doesn't make sense to me that, first of all, it's a huge driver of the Colorado economy. So that's important, just in and of itself.
It used to be the top.
Right.
And now it's the second, and it's, a $47 billion contributing into the economy.
Yeah. But even aside from that, like, just on a philosophical level, why would Polis have, like, a moral issue with that? That doesn't make sense to me. How would that even get on the floor for a vote? Right?
It could be led from the first gentleman because, they support, the PETA industry and all those, animal rights activists. Yeah. It could be a control mechanism.
Yeah.
A lot of it's going after the idea that it's anti-environmental, not realizing that our farmers and ranchers are the best stewards of the land.
Are there factory farms in your district? Are you familiar with that term?
Yes, and there's not. They're in Colorado, in Colorado, 94% of them are all family-owned.
Yeah.
They're all active, community,
Right.
multiple generation family-owned industries.
Are you familiar with ag laws?
Ag?
Yeah. So for factory farms, and if I'm wrong on this, please someone correct me out there who's listening. But from what I understand, there's something called ag laws. I'm not sure what that stands for, but basically, it prevents journalists or people recording and exposing what happens inside a factory farm. So most of what PETA does, I don't agree with. However, what they will do on occasion is show what the inside of factory farms look like. So like slaughterhouses, for example, or like chicken manufacturers, they'll show what happens in these facilities. And it's actually pretty gross. Like, frankly, I don't agree with it. I'm a huge supporter of hunting. Mm-hmm. So like if I go out and shoot one elk, that feeds me for a year and my family. That's one animal. But in terms of like the factory farming practices, I think it could be more humane. Although when it comes to like just cattle ranches, like if the animals have open fields and stuff and they're free to wander and explore and they're eating grass and all that type of stuff, that to me, if they're living a relatively natural life, that to me seems pretty humane and ethical. If you're cooped in and you're in a small area and you can't really move around very much, whether it's chickens or cows or pigs or whatever, I don't know. I feel like there could be, I don't know if regulation is the solution. I think more just people supporting farms that allow their animals more freedom and larger ranges to graze and stuff like that. I think it's probably a good thing and an ethical thing to allow animals to have some degree of I guess freedom. I don't know. I'm not like a huge animal rights person necessarily. It's more just I would like to prevent as much like suffering as possible, I guess. So I'm an archery hunter, for example. The idea when it comes to hunting is that you want to make an ethical shot. So
right.
Like you want to kill the animal as fast as possible, quick, painless. You don't want to just injure it and it bleeds out over the next few days. It's like, no, you want it to be quick and to the point, and then you get the meat and you're good. So ideally, you would want it to be like the least painful. You would want them to live, a free life as much as they can. And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Are there certain regulations that would be appropriate for something like that, or do people just need to decide to put their money in places that would promote kind of a free range animal?
Oh, and I know like the Farmers Ranchers and House District 63 across Colorado, because I've had the privilege through different opportunities to travel across Colorado. Our farmers and ranchers believe in great husbandry, stewards of the land, because that's their livelihood. They treat their cattle, their livestock, better than they treat themselves.
Right.
Cattle has, they're lame or they have an infection. Guarantee they have a vet on site that same day.
Yeah.
The farmer breaks their arm or they twist their ankle, they're waiting months to get healed. They literally are putting the health of these animals first, and they are looking at what's better for the animals, mentally maintaining, their health, because any stresses are going to affect the quality.
Right.
They want to make sure these animals have, healthy lifestyles. They get what they need because it's their life, and they do care about the animals. And I've seen, grown men cry when they see calves that don't make it, and that is tough on them because they do care about them.
Yeah.
And you talk about, these meat processing plants, these slaughter plants. They are, like the way they do the processes, they do it, and they funnel, at least the ones that I've seen in the Northeast and, the ones I've seen, they funnel them where it minimizes the stress on the animal, because they do care about that, and it's their bottom line. You add any stress, it affects the meat. They make sure it's a clean kill, and they're moving through the process to get every single thing they can use to honor the life of that animal, and to make sure that they are getting the best bottom dollar, because they want to make sure it is a livelihood.
Yeah.
And it's a full process that they're using everything they can. Yeah. So when people say that farmers aren't, like respecting their animals, honestly, the animals probably have a way better lifestyle than even their kids.
Right.
Because that's what they're putting everything into. So they are functioning, and what works on one farm, one ranch, doesn't work on another. Right. So I'm very much anti, regulation onto our ag industry on that, because they could even be a couple miles down the road, And again, what works because of soil content, which can affect the food from the grains and how you're feeding the livestock, to the wind, to how different sun and, weather patterns.
Yeah.
They're going to decide what works best for each production site.
Right. And especially on a smaller, like, family-owned cattle ranch, for example, these people have a personal connection with the animals. They saw the animal born. Like, they know, whether it's a number or a name, like, they know the animals. They at least recognize the animals and are like, okay, we want to take care of these. Like, we're raising them. We're actually raising the animals. When it comes to factory farming, it's like the animals are just like units on a spreadsheet or something. It's like, I don't know. It's different. I think in an ideal world, and I understand, in a country of 350 million people, you got to produce enough food at an affordable cost to make sure everyone can eat. With that in mind, I think minimizing the suffering of animals is actually not a bad thing. I think if there's a way to do that where it doesn't cause the prices of meat and eggs and all that type of stuff to just skyrocket, and milk, if there's a way to minimize the suffering of animals while not sacrificing the economy, I think it's a noble goal. It's a worthy goal. I'm just not sure how much benefit there is, or like how you would go about doing that. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that, or is
Well,
that?
and I'd push back because you said small family farm. Family farms
Sure.
could be huge. They could be
Sure.
the size of
Right.
and they could be productive.
Yeah.
So it's when people see big operations that are successful, still most likely family owned, because
Right.
in Colorado, I think it is 94% are family owned productions here.
Yeah.
That's a huge percent of these. And we have a lot of big industry providers
Right.
that they're maintaining that.
And I guess I
yeah.
didn't necessarily mean. I don't know. Small. What is small?
No, more for like the
just
viewers too. Like
Yeah.
small doesn't mean family farm.
Right.
It could
What
be
I
big
meant
and mean family farm.
was
Yeah.
like family owned, operated. Really, what I mean is this a cattle ranch where the cattle actually have like room to graze and like be free? Are these grass fed animals, or are these like, are there 1,000 cows in a 2-acre pasture and they're just being fed corn? I don't know. Like,
Well, and so like feedlots, if they're growing corn
Sure.
and not grass, I mean, you're looking at high nutrient levels foods that you're trying to optimize, especially with weather patterns. If we're having a dry year, you throw them out in a field to graze, that could actually maybe be worse for animals. So looking at the difference between grain and grass,
yeah.
the animal is still going to be great.
Okay.
They're still going to feed them in these feedlots with these
Right.
grains. They're still getting high nutrient. They're having veterans visit them on site.
Yeah.
Those animals, especially if you look at dairies, it's kind of the same as a feedlot. They're in there getting, high fed quality food. Those ladies are happy.
Yeah.
They have their social network. In feedlots, they're making sure that they're watching to make sure, is their pen, are they too wet so they don't get
Yeah.
any, diseases on their hoofs? Or are they making sure to get, what they need to maintain weight and get what they need?
Yeah.
While monitoring, is it too hot outside? Are they getting the water content? Are they... So, I mean, you look at grain and grass, the animals are still looking at what's best for them.
Okay. Yep.
And sometimes grass-fed are turned back into a feedlot because the grass doesn't have the nutrients, or they could be stress-induced because of the heat patterns we're seeing.
Okay.
So, they take all that into account.
Gotcha. Okay, and then hard segue here, still on Colorado politics. So, is it the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade, gave it back to the states? First of all, what are your opinions on that decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, bring it back to Colorado, and let us make a decision on it? What are your thoughts on that initial decision? Well, I'll ask you that first, and then I'll ask a follow-up.
Yeah, so and you're looking at, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and that
Life is
overturn...
the first one, by the way.
Life is the first
Yeah.
one.
You
And
have
they're
to have
looking at-
life in order to have any other
Yep.
civil rights.
No, and I think, with that decision, it really, I don't think Roe versus Wade, in the beginning, we do have life in the beginning.
Yeah.
We can't undo what Roe versus Wade happened. I do think it was a national issue because you are, in our U.S. Constitution, life. We are supposed to protect the sanctity of life.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe in local control, and, I do see the reasons for why they overturned it. But it really is a battle both at the state and the national level.
Yeah.
And we should just be protecting the sanctity of life. And I think we forgot that as a nation. You're telling people back to Trump. Yeah, just, we're sad it missed.
Yeah.
We don't know what life even means or the value of it anymore.
Right.
So I would argue, as much as, like local control on this issue, it was a U.S. constitutional question.
Yeah. Okay, so with a majority...
They should have overturned it, but it really shouldn't have been put to the state. It should have just been done. Like, protect life.
Yeah. Well, my only counter to that would be that an incremental approach might be more palatable than just an outright immediate ban all of a sudden. Although I would agree with that, just personally, that would be my personal preference. I think just when it comes to politics, I feel as though that, first of all, that was a monumental step in the right direction. I mean, that, like, just to imagine Roe v. Wade being overturned, I remember being a teenager thinking, like, that'll never happen.
Right, and in the statutes of Roe versus Wade, it really was, do states have the power? So,
right. Okay, so then the follow-up question to that would be if, let's just put it this way, because Colorado is majority Democrat in the state Congress. If they were to say, for example, well, what are the current laws? Is it 9 months in Colorado?
We have the worst law. Last time I checked in the nation, that it's up until cry. So you can literally have up to birth before the baby cries.
Wait, so in Colorado, just to clarify, because I didn't know this, if this is true. You're saying the baby could be born having not cried yet and could still be aborted?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Is that actually in the language of Colorado state statute?
I don't know the exact language, but that's the definition of it, yeah.
First cry? Are you serious?
Yeah.
No way. What? So a baby could just be like in the bed having just been born, and theoretically
could be one that's not responsive before you spank, before you try to take out the mucus.
What?
Last minute, mom decides, oh, I see it, I'm done.
No way. I cannot believe that. Is that real? Oh my god.
Yeah. This is how messed up our state is.
I knew it was bad. I didn't realize. Yeah. What?
So, and you mentioned inclements. I mean, at that point, and that's ridiculous. And as much as, I am pro-life all the way.
Yeah.
If we can move it back to third term or second term, where we're at right now is not. It would be a huge win to move it back even a little bit because of that.
Oh my gosh. That is wild. So, theoretically, I don't know if it's happened. Maybe it's happened a couple of times in Colorado. But theoretically, you could actually have given birth to a baby and then decide.
Basically say don't reciprocate, don't bring it to life if it comes out stillborn.
Wow.
And that's where I'm not sure what, like stillborn where they're not crying and you have to try to bring them back. Most of the time you can. They could be like, yeah, don't.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is so crazy. So, what my question was going to be is if they... Democrats brought it to a vote that it would be up to 9 months. Sounds like it's already past that. Let's say it was brought to a vote in Colorado. What would be your position on voting on that? How would you vote on a situation like that? on that type of issue. It sounds like you've pretty much already given me an answer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what do you mean on up to 9 months?
Just officially. Well.
Because we're there, so...
Right, so it's beyond 9 months. But let's say it was brought to a vote in Colorado. Where would you fall? And what would be your official vote in the House?
Yeah, so if we would go back, up to the 9 months up to cry, I would vote no.
Yeah.
On that, just because we need to be protecting our babies.
Yeah. Would you be for an outright ban on abortion like today? Like if that was brought up for a vote today in Colorado, what would you say about that?
I would vote yes.
No exceptions.
Correct.
Really? So rape, incest, nothing.
It's,
Really?
It's just like math, 2 negatives don't make a positive.
Yeah.
It's not the child's fault. The mom is going to need, counseling. I get that. The mom might not want to keep the baby in terms of adoption.
Give it up for adoption.
There are other options. There are so many support groups out there that we could figure out the mental health while we, preserve that life.
Yeah. Would you also ban the abortion pill? From what I understand, 2/3, since Roe v. Wade has been overturned, approximately 2/3 of abortions are now done via a pill. An abortion pill, whether they buy it online or get it prescribed by a doctor. Would you be for voting, or would you vote for the banning of an abortion pill?
Yeah, because, that's abortion.
Right.
We need to vote against that, and we need to protect the anti-reversal abortion pill.
Yeah. Because
in Colorado, it was a huge battle 2 sessions ago that they wanted to get rid of the reversal pill.
Okay.
but they wanted to keep the abortion pill. But they're claiming they want women to have rights. Well,
Yeah.
if a woman takes the pill and decides they regret it, they should have the right to reverse or attempt to reverse.
Okay. I didn't know there was a counter pill.
There
the
is.
abortion
I'm not sure what the timeline is. Obviously, you have to take it as soon as possible, and it's just like the gap of the longer you wait. But there is a reversal, pill that there's out there.
Okay.
Should someone turn their mind, and that's fantastic. I would hope people never even get to that point, but if they want to change their mind,
Right. Yeah. But they tried to ban that in Colorado.
yeah.
Were they successful or no?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think so. I think we still have it.
Yeah.
But it was a huge debate on the floor that they were claiming that they wanted to give women rights, and then they're taking away one of the options.
Okay, so I'm going to pretend to be a Democrat for a second. Why would you not want a 12-year-old girl who was raped by her uncle to be able to get rid of that baby?
Because you're still looking at another child,
I'm going to put you in the worst possible hypothetical, and maybe it's happened, maybe it hasn't in Colorado.
Gosh, I hope not, but...
You're just a horrible person. Why would you not want that? Why would you force her to have that child, with her incestuous uncle?
Yeah, and it's for me, it's how do we justify one life over the other?
Yeah.
We definitely, that 12-year-old will need help.
Right.
And we need to give all the resources we can. But it's also not the unborn child's fault.
Right.
And that's still that's still a murder in that case too.
Yeah, the solution to something horrible happening is not...
another horrible solution. Is not the way we should be thinking.
Exactly. And then also, I would say that baby has to be delivered either way, whether it's dead or alive. Why not deliver the baby alive, put it up for adoption? The kid's already been through something extremely traumatic. They're already going to need help and counseling, like you said. Why kill the baby in addition to that? That would only add...
It would add to
her
mental, yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, we're running out of time here. Were there any other issues, topics that you wanted to address just while we have a couple of minutes left here? Is there anything that you want to say? Issues that are coming up in Colorado? Anything like that? Just kind of, I'll leave it up to you for the last couple of minutes here.
Yeah, I mean, we did a deep dive on, pro-life.
Yeah.
In our state of Colorado, if we have any chance of winning anything back, even to purple at this point, we need to look at the economic drivers over the social issues. As in, yes, I will protect life all day, every day.
Yeah.
But what I've run my platform on is the Rurban versus Earl, that we need to make sure we are showing people what hurts their pocketbook. We've lost common sense at this point.
You said Reuben versus Earl?
Rural versus urban.
Oh.
Urban versus rural,
I thought that was like a court decision.
No. Urban versus
Earl.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, no. Urban versus rural, showing why, countryside versus city side.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, we need to make sure we're showing people, what's driving their pocketbooks. We need to look at sensible solutions because we don't have common sense in this state. And really need to lead the narrative and change the directive of, I'm going to work across the aisle. I'm not going to compromise my values.
Yeah.
I actually got a new Bible on the day of elections. That way I can make that my journey.
Okay.
That's going to be my political, so I have that leaning to help guide everything. Because one of my platforms, and I write it here just because people don't believe it unless you write it because they want documentation,
right,
is I will always get on my knees to pray and stand up for what I believe is true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let that moral compass guide everything I do. And we're going to do it in a new way to share the narrative. We're not changing values. We're changing words so people start to listen. Because we've yelled out the same concepts as Republicans. We yell the same thing every time.
Right.
It's not working.
Yeah.
So I leave it at my campaign as cows, cops, and coffee. It's different. They all start with CEO for Colorado because we have to come together as a state. Cows are for all of agriculture, all of rural Colorado, energy and oil, you name what we need in rural resources.
Yeah.
Cops are for all first responders, military, the mental and behavioral health that are leading to the issues we're having with crime rates. I'm looking at all of that as a collective.
Yeah.
And Constitution, it also goes into that because we have the rule of law. Coffee because I have the second largest land mass district. There are a lot of miles still making it to all my communities because they all deserve representation.
Yeah.
I want to be boots on the ground. I love having meetings with people and coming to the table to talk and do discussions. And I like coffee.
Yeah.
I have a lot of energy. I am the youngest for this, seat running in the state, and I think we do need that different narrative.
Heck yeah.
We need all the narratives. We need the wisdom, but we need to start changing the story because we are losing votes.
Yeah.
And not just we're losing votes as Republicans, but people are not showing up to the polls. A little over 4,000 in Morgan County, where I'm from, voted.
Yeah.
That's in a county of over 18,000 people.
Yeah.
And that's across the state. We're showing small 25, 35% showing up.
Yeah.
That's not a government buying for the people if the government
Right.
if the people are not showing up. We need the people to get back engaged so they can take control again.
Yeah.
And so I really want to hope to change the narrative from politician to statesman.
Okay.
I'm a voice from the Eastern Plains. I'm a voice from rural Colorado. And I want to be that microphone piece to the Gold Dome because we need to be telling the stories of the people, which is, again, why I did everything. Why I wanted holistic views and I wanted to be boots on the ground and having the tough discussions because we can't avoid them.
Right. So last question, and I'll let you go. Do you think Colorado can be turned red again? And if so, what would it take to get there, in your opinion?
I'd like to say yes. I know we can turn it purple for sure. I think we can turn red if we stop chasing, again, the social and we start doing more self-accountability in the private sector. We need to have morals back in our state, back in our households. We need to have our households leading those discussions and businesses leading those discussions and getting government out of it.
Yeah.
If we can push back and deregulate government and tell people why it's affecting their bottom dollar, why it's affecting their life choices, why government's not the answer. It's the 9 scariest words for a reason. I think if we can convince people to stop relying on the government.
From the government.
And I'm here to help.
And I'm here to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
I went to Fort Morgan, but I can count. Sometimes. No, but we need to change that narrative. And we're such a welfare state that when there's an issue, who do you call? Your state representative.
Right.
Because government's going to fix it. And we need to get out of that mindset of we have an issue, but we the people have a solution. We're going to call our state representative, so we are the solution.
Yeah.
And you are putting control back to the people. We just have to change that mindset.
Beautifully said. Okay, do you want to shout out your social media, website? How can people find you, follow you, vote for you, all that stuff?
Yeah, so it's dustyforcolorado.com. So DUSTYFOR Colorado.com. Want to make it easy to get a hold of. I put my personal cell phone out there. I put my home address out there. I am a Second Amendment supporter, though, so you should know that when my home address is there. More so for pen paling if you prefer writing letters, if you want to text or call. My email's on my website, my Facebook, Twitter, social, Instagrams, my op-eds, because I really want to be accountable to all people.
Yep.
Whether it's social media platforms, pen paling, emails, texting. We have so many generations in the state that we can't leave out anyone.
Yep.
And so I really do want to make sure that I'm easy to get a hold of.
Heck yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Dusty. You're the best. Thank you so much. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Yes.
Yep.
I look forward to it.
All right. Thank you.